Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Control Your Destiny, Hybrid Cloud Storage. We like to say that you get all the clouds without the lock-in, and we'll talk more about what that means as we go through this presentation. I see that we have some attendees still joining us, so I'm going to give it a minute before we get rolling. Thank you. Okay, let's get started. Good morning again. My name is Greg Newman. Welcome to today's webinar, Control Your Destiny, Hybrid Cloud Storage. Let's jump right in, shall we? We have for you an agenda that talks a little bit about popular hybrid cloud storage methods and some of the advantages and disadvantages. And then we'll take a look at a different approach, a more integrated approach. And I will leave a little bit of time for some Q&A at the end. We should be able to get through this material and leave time for Q&A. No more than 45 minutes, I imagine. I know we scheduled an hour for today's webinar, but let's give you back 15 minutes of your day. Thanks. Here, let's get going now. Before we jump into the substantive material, let me take a moment, because I'm the marketing guy, to offer a brief commercial. Zadara, if you don't know us, is the world's most widely deployed software-defined storage system. We have 200 points of presence. We do this over 6 continents and for a variety of companies and government agencies, some of which you can see right here on the screen. We'll talk a little bit later about stories around a few of those companies, but for now, let's jump into the topic. For all of you on this call, I'm sure you've had at least some experience with what we now call hybrid cloud, what was formerly or sometimes called tiering to the cloud, cloud storage gateways, appliances related to that, and more recently, software-defined storage. We're going to take a look at these approaches and some of the advantages and disadvantages, and then understand how you might put together a solution using them and what trade-offs you would make. Let's start with what we like to think of as a very simple approach. In fact, maybe too simple, and that is cloud tiering and cloud gateways. It sure seems like the promise of these things, at least a few years ago, knew no limits. But what we have found over time is that using cloud storage gateways and attempting to tier storage comes with some real trade-offs. Of course, you can imagine, in any environment you have the latency. Latency is going to vary depending on your connectivity and where you're located, but it's always a factor. And then you have cache sizes, because of course, any cloud gateway appliance in the background is working to chug along and push that data up to the cloud, pull data back down from the cloud as you need it in what would appear to be a real-time fashion. Now, of course, the promise of being able to take advantage of cloud gateways and the economics of the cloud and the idea of object storage and all that that has to offer really is interesting, and we wouldn't want to lose it, but how can we overcome some of the limitations associated with that? So some of us might have said to ourselves, well, let's go ahead and build our own. Let's do something where we take our on-premises hardware and storage stack, and we go ahead and connect to a cloud, or maybe put some hardware into a data center, a private cloud, and see if we can cobble together something that's got a little bit more capability. This also seems compelling, doesn't it? Because after all, you've made a big investment in your storage infrastructure. Why wouldn't you want to take advantage of that? But as we all know, like any DIY project, you get yourself into it and you discover that it's not quite as simple as you thought it was going to be, and it costs a lot more than you thought it might. Part of the reason for this is that software-defined storage vendors sell their products with an assumption that you're going to use them almost in a greenfield manner. You're going to come in and you're going to replace. That's really not realistic, is it? You have existing infrastructure, you have existing investments, and you are going to want to use that infrastructure. And when you look at the offerings from software-defined storage vendors, many of them have a no SAN approach. You've probably made a big investment in a storage area network, and so it's not realistic to think you're going to go ahead and make that switch immediately. It would be better if SDS vendors were to adopt a crawl, walk, run approach. That's certainly long been discussed, but that's not really what's on the table, and it's not really realistic to expect that you're going to be able to build for yourself a solution that will give you the advantages that are promised. And then there's the advantage that's not really talked about from SDS vendors or from any of this build your own model, which is if you're going to continue to rely on your legacy systems and the legacy approach and the licensing approach, you're really not getting the advantage of the cloud model, are you? So while you may be able to get performance improvements as compared to a cloud gateway, you're really not getting the business model improvements by moving to a cloud model where you are using, paying for only that which you use. And so you get kind of the worst of all possible situations here. You get an expensive on-prem and complex to manage on-prem solution, and then you get the public cloud storage options, which in many cases, while fairly decent, aren't necessarily as cheap as they might first appear. We very much like the option of the public cloud vendors. We work with all of them. We are partnered with all of them, but they are not necessarily in the business of providing the lowest total cost solution. Great convenience, but you are making trade-offs in terms of performance and features and functionality, and in many cases costs. So how do you get exactly what you need in a storage solution and not make the trade-offs that we've just been talking about? I'll take a moment here to look at this chart and to summarize what we were just talking about. I think a lot of what we see here and a lot of what we've been talking about in the last few minutes is pretty straightforward. Again, many people on this call and this webinar, I'm sure, have experienced this. This is, as you can see from the chart, a classic case of pick your poison. You want low cost, great, stick with the tiering and the gateways, but you're going to make a trade-off in performance. You want better performance, you want to do more with features and functionality and what you're looking for in a storage system. Well, then you're going to want to DIY it. You're going to want to build your own, but you're really going to pay in terms of flexibility, universality, and then of course the cost is going to go way up. So, as should be no surprise to anybody in this webinar, we have an answer. And here at Zadara, the answer came to us way back in 2011, actually. And that answer starts with a very simple premise, and that is, how can we combine the power and control of on-premises traditional storage, enterprise storage, with the convenience, the flexibility, the agility, and the cost model, the consumption-based model of the cloud. And when it comes to storage, what we discovered very early on, because our company is founded by storage veterans from the industry decades back, companies like LSI, IBM, NetApp, others. These are folks with deep roots in storage. What we discovered very early on was that it ain't so easy to do this, and that's pretty obvious when you think about it. Storage is complex. It's not simple. It's never going to be simple. Surely we can make it as simple as possible, to borrow a phrase from Einstein, but it's not going to be simple. And we acknowledged that early in our development, and we came up with proprietary software, our own software-defined storage solution that incorporates a variety of features that you would expect to find in a multi-tenant cloud system, thus going further than any software-defined storage offering then available or now available. And it's this proprietary software that forms the underpinnings, the foundation for everything we do at Zadara. And that's why when you look at this chart, you can see that we in fact check all the boxes, because our system was designed from the ground up to do exactly that. And so it's no surprise that when you think about our solution, Zadara, and what we offer, built into it is the notion that you can get it anywhere you operate. If you're operating strictly on-prem, or you're operating in a combination of locations, including perhaps at your own MSP or in the public cloud, you can stand up Zadara storage at any one or all of these locations, and you will have a single storage system that can be used across multiple locations. That means we've reduced the complexity and the cost of operating your storage by a significant margin. Now, it's important to point out that when we talk about a different approach to storage, and when we talk about making your life easier, it's not enough just to say we have new technology, we have better technology. Sure, that's important. We understand, and that's why we built what we built. But our approach is much more than that, because we see that we're not going to be able to solve the whole problem without addressing the services side of the equation. So when we talk about storage, we think of it very differently than other companies that offer similar solutions. Storage as a service is the business we're in, and the emphasis really needs to be on the word service. There are significant management activities that need to take place on an ongoing basis with regard to storage. Some of that can be reduced, and we all know that many storage systems these days are incorporating some advanced features and functionality that allow for the monitoring and reporting on storage. And our systems, of course, incorporate all of those same types of capabilities. But no amount of AI or fancy features will completely relieve you of the duty to manage your storage, just like any other IT system. So our expert team really forms the backbone for the offering to our customers, because it is their live management and support. And we are on 4 continents with our management and DevOps teams, which allows us to give you 24/7 by 365 coverage. It is that service that offers the true relief to our customers. And it was that discovery on our part back in 2011, as we reached out to customers and discussed and described what it is we wanted to do for them. We discovered that it is the service that really makes the difference. And even to this day, it is the service we find when we talk to our customers that has made the biggest difference in their operations and is the single biggest reason why they rely on Zadara and continue to grow their business with Zadara. Well, in addition to that service, and I think my description has given it sufficient weight, I think it's pretty obvious how important we think it is. We also offer some important features that we believe demonstrate just how seriously we take the commitment to providing a true seamless service. Number one, on-demand, non-disruptive hardware upgrades. This is something you're just not going to find anywhere else, and there's a reason for that, of course. Hardware is expensive, and it typically is treated as, for accounting purposes, treated as something that an asset that needs to be depreciated. And when storage vendors of all types think about their hardware, they tend to want to box it up and ship it off and then account for it on their books. We're a service. We don't do that. We don't sell anything. Our hardware remains our hardware, and no matter how much of it you use, and you pay for it as you use it, and whether it's on your premises or you're accessing it through our cloud partners, it remains our hardware, and anytime you want to swap it, you can. As an example, we recently, back in August, introduced NVMe. So we now have SSDs, and they're available with NVMe now. And for those applications where NVMe will make a performance difference and you'd like to take advantage of it, if you're a customer of ours and you want to shift to NVMe, and move off of the hardware you've been using, whether that's our HDDs or our SSDs on SAS or SATA, then you can do that. And there's no penalty. In fact, in the case of NVMe, what we've discovered by introducing larger capacity drives is that we were able to reduce the cost per gigabyte to our customers by about 25%. That's a significant savings, of course. It is not typical that you get to increase performance and also save money, but in this case it worked out, and we're happy to pass those savings along. The other thing that we do, and I think this is absolutely mandatory, is that we have 100% uptime SLA. That guarantee simply means that we believe it's our responsibility to be up 100% of the time, period. If we're not, we have a credit mechanism in place. I will tell you, we rarely have to use it. We have a track record of 5.5 nines over many years. Nevertheless, in those rare instances where we have had some minor disruptions, we understand and we stand behind it. We have 100% SLA. Well, I think it's important not just to talk about ourselves because while we enjoy it, you would probably enjoy hearing from customers more. And so I'd like to take a moment to talk about a few customers. I think that these stories help to demonstrate why an approach like what Zadara offers can really make a difference. Gilt, you may know, is a large fashion retailer. They experienced the kind of hybrid data storage challenge that we've been talking about today. They needed to share data between their on-premises and their cloud infrastructure. They found that they had a legacy infrastructure that was rather expensive, and they were struggling with some scalability issues. They went ahead and implemented Zadara, of course, and what they discovered was that they could free themselves from the cost and the complexity. In their case, about 85% reduction in storage costs. This is obviously a significant figure. It comes through a variety of factors, not least of which is that with the pay-as-you-go model, they were freed from having to make large CapEx purchases, upfront costs. And more importantly for them anyway, was that they were able to rethink how they manage storage and how they integrate storage into their business. Because remember, data storage is really just a means to an end. Data storage is not something anybody wakes up in the morning saying, "Gee, I think I want more storage." Of course, we all think about the business problems we face, and storage can potentially be a part of a solution to a business challenge. But that's the extent of the utility of data storage, isn't it? It's all about the data, not the storage. And so Gilt was able to really rethink their whole approach to storage, save a significant amount of money, not just in the storage cost, the direct cost, but also redeploying people. This is an interesting thing, by the way, we find with many of our customers, is that it was a bit unforeseen in some cases that they could really free up people, in many cases people who have lots of skills and are costly. These are not inexpensive resources, right? Able to free those people up and move them into higher value activities, things that are more strategic, things that are more look ahead, and able to help the business to plan and to manage itself more proactively. So those kinds of advantages, which are sometimes unforeseen or sometimes hard to quantify ahead of time, really do have a significant impact, we find, with our customers. Let's talk about a different situation. This is a manufacturer. The interesting thing here is there's just a vast amount of data each month, and anytime you're dealing with petabytes of data and the kind of time scales that we're talking about here, 3 petabytes of data each month, you know you're dealing with a heavy load. It's a heavy lift. And furthermore, it's not just that it's a lot of data, this is quality control data from a manufacturing line, and they needed to be able to view that data, manipulate that data, and look at it for real-time insights to make sure that they are meeting their quality parameters. And so with Zadara, they were able to scale up very, very quickly. They were able to match capacity to demand, and to do that as demand goes up and down, because an interesting thing about Zadara is that you can scale both up and down. And so what we have with this particular customer is an environment that is very purpose-built and purpose-driven. And we were able to tailor it to match their requirements, not just for the large amounts of data and the elasticity I just mentioned, but also the ability to move that data off. We automatically compress it using our systems and our software and archive it to Amazon AWS S3. That's probably pretty popular for many people on this call today. And it's good to know that we have a backup to S3 function built right into our software. And this particular customer takes advantage of that. And so when they took a look at what they could do with our stuff, and they first started, they saw very quickly they could rely on it, and they began to grow more sophisticated over time. And what they do now, it's very interesting, is they have a Docker container-based system to do the processing. Like I mentioned, they need to process this data before they move it off. And so they can do processing right within the storage, which frees up other IT systems from that workload. It allows them to do that work more quickly and more efficiently than they could otherwise. So it's a good reminder to us, when I said earlier that storage, enterprise storage is complex, this is a good example. That's what we're talking about, right? We don't just think of storage for its ability to store files. Of course, that's fundamental and important, and we need that. But frequently we call upon our storage systems to do so much more. That's why enterprise storage systems are really so different from consumer-based systems. And all of us in the enterprise storage business know that, but for those of you who might be wondering about Zadara and just how deep our capabilities go, I think the Docker container functionality is a good example of the breadth and depth of what we offer, and how when you think about bringing a vendor like Sidora into your operation, you need to think carefully about just what your features and functions are, the requirements are for that. And you need to make sure that you're going to have everything covered off. And so I would recommend to anybody on this webinar to do your planning carefully, to really think ahead about the workloads you're going to be running on storage, and make sure that whatever you choose, that you get a full selection of features and functionality to cover off today's workloads and any workloads you might envision running tomorrow. And by the way, if you're interested in some help and a checklist in terms of what to ask for and what you should be looking for as you're planning your next data storage step, because we're all on a journey, right? We're all on a journey. Taking the next step may be something you're contemplating, and if so, at Zadara, we have those checklists. We have those questions that you would want to ask. Obviously, we think that the answers you're going to come up with will likely put us in a very favorable light, but whether you choose Zadara or not, we really do recommend that you plan thoroughly, plan carefully, and make sure that you're getting everything you need in a storage system. So, I did promise you that we would get through our talk in about 30 minutes, which would leave time for us to handle some questions. I see here that we're at about 26, 27 minutes in. I'm proud of myself. I hope that you have found this interesting. We have covered this topic in just enough detail, I hope, to give you a sense of what matters and what you should look out for and why a different approach to storage, especially in a hybrid environment where you're on a journey. You are attempting to migrate from, let's call it the legacy way of doing things, to a cloud model. And of course, we've all probably realized that there are steps in that journey, that those steps need to be mapped carefully, and every organization will have a slightly different approach to this. But by and large, at Zadara, of course, after building and hosting and managing thousands of virtual private storage arrays, we've seen just about every journey and every path. And we know what the likely steps are in a variety of scenarios. So whatever it is you're facing, chances are we faced it before. And we do know that there are some fundamental components and steps that you must take in order to be successful in navigating this journey. And the first and foremost, and it's the reason we put this webinar together, is that we believe you need to think not just about the storage itself as you're making a journey to a hybrid operating environment, but you need to think about the deployment model and the financial model, because that's really the essence of what it means to be hybrid and to be cloud. I think we're all learning that now. We're several years into this great, the word digital transformation. The term digital transformation comes up a lot. It's overused. Let's just say it's a great evolution in the way IT functions within enterprises. And we at Zadara are excited to be a part of it. With our expertise in storage, we think we're playing a useful role in that. And we would encourage you to come see for yourself. If you have questions, some of the best ways you can answer your questions often is simply to try it out. And that's why we do offer this free trial. You can see it up on your screen now. And we would encourage you to please contact us and try for yourself. Our storage experts will be there every step of the way. We'll give you free training and support. You can start with a simple workload. You could start with something that you think might be representative of what you would do with Zadara. We find many customers start with us with a single workload or a single project, a DevOps project, for instance, very popular. A backup project is another very popular one. That's because Zadara, in the context of backup, gives you a single storage system for every tier of backup, whether it's your performance tier all the way down to your capacity tier. You use one storage system and suddenly you've simplified and streamlined the backup process. And that holds true whether you're doing that using our integrated backup software, and we do have some terrific backup software and high availability capabilities and DR capabilities built in, or whether you're doing it with one of our partners like Veeam and Commvault, Asigra and Zerto. We live in an ecosystem and we know that. That's why we partner with many companies that complement what we do, and many companies that you're probably already doing business with. Okay, I hope that this has been useful to you and for you. And I will now open it up for questions. I appreciate it. Looks like we've already got a few questions here. And I will be happy to answer them. All right. And by the way, let me point out, before I begin answering these questions, and I want to thank everybody for sending them. It looks like I have a number of them now. I am the Vice President of Marketing. We will plumb the depths of my technical knowledge fairly quickly, but I do promise you, we will get answers out to you in written form after this webinar for any questions that I'm not able to answer here. Okay, let's start here at the top. Is it working with Sun Solaris Spark OS? The answer to that is yes, if we're talking about Zadara storage. Zadara is a web-based system, so you are accessing us through a web-based client. And therefore, with no hardware to buy, no software to install, whatever operating system you might be running on shouldn't pose any issue. Does Zadara storage charge egress fees? No, we have no egress fees. Great question, thank you. Egress fees are an important part of cloud providers, public cloud providers makeup. We all know that. We wish they weren't there. They are a part of the equation. We all need to consider them. We don't charge egress fees, and one of the ways in which this actually becomes very interesting for our customers is that they will use Zadara adjacent to, and in fact direct connected to, our cloud partners and their chosen cloud provider, whether it's AWS, Google, or Azure, or in fact Oracle also is another one of our partners. They will use our storage instead of the storage available through the cloud provider, so that they can do two things. And they'll still take advantage of the cloud provider's many other capabilities, including the compute, but they will use our cloud storage so that they can get two things. One, they can avoid the egress fees. Three things, actually. They can also, in many cases, get a better performance at a lower cost, and we won't dwell on that, but it's a fact. And then they can also stand up this storage and present it to multiple virtual private clouds. So suddenly, with Zadara as your storage partner, rather than being locked inside of a particular public cloud storage system and being beholden to their rules and limitations, you are outside of that environment, and you can do some really neat stuff with your storage now. Suddenly, you're able to really be a lot more flexible with how and where you present that data and how you can use it. So we find that use case really has some legs, and a lot of people get a lot out of it as a result. So it's not, it's never really about the cost, it's more about the value. And when you look at the value you can get from working with a third party like Zadara, and the fact that the cost might be lower, it becomes a very compelling offering, we believe. And so I hope that helps answer egress fee questions. Let's see what else. Clones and snapshots, thank you very much. Yes, we have a snapshotting feature baked right into our software. This becomes a very important capability for many, many customers. If you'd like to learn more about our features and functionality, I didn't want to delve too deeply into it today. Really wanted to keep the topic today focused on some of the business drivers and some of the reasons to consider an approach like Zadara. if you would like to dive more deeply into our technical capabilities, and I like to say that the closer you look at us, the better we appear. A little bit of a play on words, but it's there's a serious meaning behind that, and that is this is a system built by storage experts for storage experts. No feature or functionality has been left out, really. When you look at what you would expect in a storage system, you're not going to see really anything wanting. And I would encourage you to go to our website and poke around a bit. I think you'll find a significant amount of information there about the features and functions like clones and snapshots. And also, I can address the next question as well. Do you support iSCSI and Fiber Channel? Yes, as a matter of fact, we do. So when you're looking at how you operate your storage today and the protocols that you use, you will see from our website, again, if you'd like to go check it out on your own, that we like to say we have any data type, any protocol, and any location. Again, it's this notion of zero trade-offs. There are no trade-offs in terms of the performance. And that's because we allow you to do things in basically the same way you've always done them, only now you're doing them using our hardware and software, and you're doing them in a pay-as-you-go model. All right, we have just a couple more questions here, and then we're going to have to wrap it up. So let me just take a few more. Somebody here is asking about our pricing. I do recommend you go to the website. Depending on the features and functions you purchase, you're looking at just pennies per gigabyte per hour for storage. Obviously, that's at our lowest cost. And if you add more features and functionality, all of which is at your choice, our costs on a per gigabyte per hour basis, those costs will go up. What we have found is that through a study we did with a third party, the evaluator group, that over a 10-year span, we have a lower total cost. We're able to provide our customers with a lower total cost of ownership than legacy storage, no surprise, right, with their large upfront costs, then leasing of legacy equipment. Again, probably no surprise. Leasing is just a clever financial mechanism. And the one that was a surprise to us was that Zadara in our cloud model actually provides a lower total cost of ownership as compared to the hyperscale public clouds. Again, I said earlier, they don't necessarily have a strong incentive to keep their costs as low as possible. They do provide some excellent convenience, and you pay for that convenience. Nothing wrong with that. We're all capitalists, right? But it was very interesting to see that, in fact, Zadara, over time, provides a lower total cost of ownership as compared to the cloud providers. And that's certainly something to keep in mind as you weigh your options in the future. Well, I hope that this has been a useful webinar for all of you who could attend. I do very much appreciate your time today. I'd like to give you back a little bit of that time. And again, I would encourage you, if you have further questions and we haven't covered them in today's webinar, to please do visit our website and reach out to us. We have all the usual mechanisms for that these days. You can chat with us online. You can reach out by telephone or email and start a conversation. Again, we're happy to sell you Zadara, but we're even happier if you come to us and ask questions about your approach to storage. Where are you on your journey? What are you trying to accomplish? And our experts love those conversations. They'll roll up their sleeves and they'll talk with you about it. You may find that the right answer is Zadara. We hope you do. But you may find that you've simply learned something useful and you're going to go about doing it a different way. We'll be sad to see you go, but we understand. So please do think of us as a resource. And the start for you there is to go to our website. You can see the URL down at the bottom of the screen. Okay, again, thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate you attending today's webinar and look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.